So I think there are 4 areas that it improves on.
Tell me.
So those 4 are character development, plot structure, character motivation, and consistent tone.
Okay.
So the first thing I'll get into is character development. Before I talk about any of the Justice League members, I want to talk about Steppenwolf.
Yes. Okay.
It has been said that a movie is only as great as its villain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's almost always true. And in the the theatrical Justice League, you can't hear us say jOsStIcE League, but that's what it's been called.
That's what he's saying.
The jOsStIcE League. In the theatrical cut, Steppenwolf was just your most average, stock, corny Saturday cartoon villain.
Yeah, he's very milquetoast.
It was the most milquetoast. I was bored out of my mind and just that was part of the reason, was just because he just shows up and he's just like, I'm here to do what I did before and destroy the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're gonna love me. Blah blah blah. And then, it's just basically there's nothing interesting there. In this one, they flesh out his backstory quite a bit. He's more of a lieutenant or general to Darkseid, who's the big bad guy. He's kind of like the Emperor to Darth Vader. Mm-hmm. And Steppenwolf is given a motivation of trying to get back home.
He's trying to restore his honor, because Darkseid kicked him out.
Yeah, there's a scene where he's talking to, who was it?
Desaad,
that's who it was, yeah. And he basically asks, can I come home after I do this? And, he tells him, no, you got to pay your debt first. That one scene made him, I think, I'm going to maybe get some flack for saying this, but I think he's on, this is what I feel weird saying this.
I can't wait to hear this.
I think he's on par with Thanos. I think he's as good, maybe even a little bit better. I know, I'm going there. I went there.
Wow. I mean,
and the reason is...
Okay, keep going.
No, please.
People, Thanos is always compared to Darkseid, but you just went...
Right.
The subordinate to Darkseid is as good or better than Thanos. Wow. Was not expecting that.
I know. I knew that was going to surprise you.
Wow.
I didn't think... Well, I won't get too much into why I didn't buy a lot of Thanos' conflict. I like Thanos as a villain. Mm-hmm. But there were some holes in it that I'm like, I just don't... It's not really...
Yeah.
I see what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. With Steppenwolf, his motivation totally sells it for me that he's going to do whatever it takes to do what he needs to do.
Yeah.
He obviously wants to get home. He's already conquered these worlds or whatever. And wanting to get home is a very human desire.
Yeah.
That's something that I can relate to as a person when I see him on screen. And it's something that when I hear that and I see that, I'm going to believe that he's going to do whatever it takes to get there.
You almost well up a little bit when you find that out about him. He's like, he just wants to go.
Totally.
And there's the scene where he's looking at Darkseid and he's got the puppy dog eyes. The funniest thing about all this is, so not only did the theatrical Justice League rewrite his character, they also changed his whole character design because apparently Warner Brothers said that his original design is too scary. But now everyone loves Steppenwolf because of his little puppy dog eyes and oh, how adorable is he? And he's so well liked now. So, I mean, you can't just you cannot mess with artists sometimes. You just got to let them do their thing once in a while.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I went back and rewatched some of the scenes from the original one, and Steppenwolf, he just looks like an old man in a suit of armor.
Yeah.
And I know, and I looked up some of the comic panels that have Steppenwolf as a part of him. I know he's not always depicted as the most intimidating character, but seeing Zack Snyder's version, I mean, he was intimidating, he was imposing, he's hacking people in half.
Yeah.
And
he threw the horse, I was like, oh my gosh.
I know. His armor was really cool. I liked the design of his armor. It's like kind of organic looking.
Yeah.
It like moves and reacts to what he emotes. You know, like spikes shoot out when he gets angry or when he's getting aggro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it was
love
just
it,
really
man.
cool.
I can't tell you how surprised I am how much you love the villain.
I know,
That's
and I
cool.
know some people I've heard they didn't think much of him, but I actually think they did a really good job. I mean,
Yeah.
he's simple. He's not like the most complex character, but he has for me, I see a personal motivation like that I can relate to. That's not like, you know, I want to rule the world and I want, you know, all these things that are very like common and stock for villains
Yeah.
to have.
So would you say then Steppenwolf might even be a better villain than Darkseid himself?
I think so, yeah,
From
at this
a
point. I haven't
motivation
seen
standpoint.
enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen enough of Darkseid and like what motivates him. And that's a compelling thing too, like power, wanting power.
Yeah.
I get that. That's a human thing. Who doesn't like power? There's a reason that it's so corrupting. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it was just that was awesome. They did such a good job. And the reason that has knock-on effects for the rest of the movie is because, like I said, I believe that he's going to do whatever it takes in every scene that he's in. That he's going to be brutal and ruthless, and that his motivation carries a real threat to the other characters in the movie who are trying to stop him. So, yeah, that's kind of in summary the villain. Wow. The rest of the characters also have very clear character motivations, but I don't want to talk too much.
Yeah, I mean, basically the whole League I think was fleshed out really well. I would say Wonder Woman didn't get as much of a character arc, but I think when they were making the concept of the movie, this was supposed to come out in 2017, the same year as Wonder Woman did. So I think they kind of, left her out a little bit in the character development department. We should have already come from seeing her movie and kind of getting her deal. So she's kind of like the mother of the team. Like she's just a very a solid figure. Very dependable, smart, kind of the team leader. Batman defers to her in a lot of ways, even though he's kind of orchestrating everything. So I think it works for her that she doesn't need a ton of development because she's kind of the cornerstone of the team.
Totally.
But then, I think Flash might have been my favorite hero, Flash or Batman. I loved his intro scene. Let me just geek out a little bit about this. So I think what's so cool about the way they showed his powers is people always think of Flash as, he runs fast, but his whole power set is not just moving quickly, but controlling, this essence called the Speed Force. It's almost like a spiritual, like the Force in Star Wars. And so he's not just moving fast, but he can, phase his molecules through solid objects or take or add speed to other objects. So what I think was very cool about when he's saving Iris from the car crash is how gently he's moving her around, because he totally understands her momentum and inertia is going this way, and if he just kind of grabbed her and pulled her down, like you might see in other movies with speedsters, that would, in practice, that would totally break her bones. But you can see, you get the sense of his powers where he's kind of like pulling the inertia out of her, and I just thought that was like so beautiful. And then the hot dog, and like, what the heck? And I think that's a great way to introduce his character. He's gentle, caring, and he tries to think things out in advance and he comes back with the hot dog thing. Totally. Also, the way that his shoes burned off as soon as he entered the Speed Force, and that it kind of introduces the need for why he has this crazy suit that's made of rocket material or whatever. So that was really fun for me to see as a longtime Flash fan, and kind of growing up with these characters and wanting to see them done the way you imagine them in your head. That's like, oh man, that was awesome.
Yeah, everybody in the movie kind of gets their own time, their own arc, their own and it's not. It's all very well paced and set up in the movie, where I didn't feel like I was wasting any time. All the motivations for characters were very clear. Cyborg. Cyborg's kind of like the heart and soul of the movie in a lot of ways. He has that relationship with his...
Zack Snyder said as much, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He has that relationship with his dad, and he's also dealing with his own kind of Frankenstein complex thing where he's only half human now. Mm-hmm. And that was great to have more time with him and to understand things a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Maybe we could call back to some of the differences here between character motivations in this movie and the original Justice League.
Yeah,
I mean, it did feel like there was a lot that was just missing, and it was all over the place for that reason.
Yeah,
in the original.
I mean, I don't want to get too much into controversial stuff, but Ray Fisher, the actor who played Cyborg, the past year he's been kind of campaigning to make known the verbal abuse and racism that went on behind the scenes once Joss Whedon took over the Justice League movie. And when you watch the theatrical version, you'll notice a lot of the people of color were cut out of the movie or had their roles reduced. And they kind of made Cyborg into a joke. They made him say "booyah" from the Teen Titans cartoon. It's like, okay, no one, that's fine, but no one wanted to see that. And then you see this version, and you see how much heart he has, and the scene where he's learning his powers as his dad's explaining in the tape recording, and he helps the woman with the you won the bank giveaway thing. That was so fun and cool, and you just see that genuine smile on his face, where even though he's a hurt person, it's still in his heart to do good for other people. And that's such a powerful message. I mean, are you kidding me? That's awesome. And then that, along with his relationship with his father, a lot of the characters have to relate to their families in this movie, which kind of brings the whole family theme into it, alongside Zack Snyder's relationship with his daughter. And so you think about all these family relationships and in the context of real life. And that just makes the movie so much more powerful and meaningful. So I'm watching this and I'm understanding on so many levels.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, character motivation, and I think just the general logic of the plot was just better. All the characters had very, very clear motives in this version, whereas, and it's been a while since I've seen the original one, but I a lot of what was going on, I just didn't understand why certain characters were the way they were and what changed for them. I remember wondering about Aquaman. He starts as kind of grumpy and just like this bad boy. And then
he shows up.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember it. It's been a while.
I mean, you don't have to watch that movie ever again anymore.
Thank you. Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, and then you also mentioned the more consistent tone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things about the original Justice League that I do remember very well is it felt like two movies that were glued together. Mm-hmm. It was so obvious, it was clear what parts were Joss Whedon to me and what parts were Zack Snyder.
Yeah, and you can tell in the writing and in the visuals.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. There were so many and I think when Joss Whedon has time and his own volition, he can be good. But even with writing, but even in the Avengers, I remember some lines that are just okay, I can see Joss Whedon writing that on a piece of paper in a coffee shop and giggling to himself. Yeah.
Yeah. And with all the stuff coming out about Joss Whedon or whatever, believe what you want, read into that. I will say there are some kind of small parts in the original cut, that lines that he added, that I actually thought were kind of effective. A lot of people liked the scene where Batman was instructing Flash on how to save people, and he just said, "Save one, and then you'll know what to do." I thought that was kind of a nice scene. So I don't want to say everything Joss did was just terrible and he's the worst human in the world. Other people can say that. I'm not going to say it.
I won't say that either.
I haven't met the guy.
I actually like Joss Whedon, his movies, a lot of his movies. And I was a big Firefly fan. I liked Serenity. The Avengers are great. I actually think that both his Avengers movies are the best of any of the Marvel MCU.
What?
Heresy!
I know. Avengers movies. I still like Winter Soldier better, but
I just watched that yesterday.
you did.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
wait,
we'll have a video about
wait,
that.
you're still on like Age of Ultron better than Infinity War though?
Maybe.
Okay, put a pin in that. This is okay. That's for later, next episode. Oh my god.
Also controversial. I know I'm gonna get flack for it. But anyway,
so
I find some of his dialogue cringy. That doesn't mean that I blame him for everything that happened in the original Justice League. It was just a mess. But it is what it is. Those were some of the parts of the movie that were just very cringy to me and didn't work.
Okay.
Because it was jumping back and forth between, this dire situation, and then 2 seconds later, Superman's joking about wanting to die, and it's
Cyborg
like
can't
totally
feel
out
his
of
feet.
character. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And they're acting like they've known each other for like 17 years, and they all just like met last week or whatever. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
Yeah.
So for me, watching all of Zack Snyder's movies, some people didn't like the direction he took the characters. Superman would never kill someone, or Batman would never use a gun, or whatever. So I'm watching this, and we've talked about this before, understanding that these characters are so malleable, and people are going to do different things with them long after we're dead, probably. And so I don't get married exactly to one interpretation of the characters and think they always have to act exactly the same way, as long as the general essence is there. So, I'm watching Zack Snyder's first two movies, particularly like Dawn of Justice, and like, okay, I see Batman's very dark in this movie, and he's kind of lost, but the title is Dawn of Justice, so we know he's going to come out of this. So I already had a sense of where the story was going, and Zack Snyder talked about how the plan was for the second chapter, Batman v Superman, to be kind of the low point, so that when you get to Justice League, it's a lot happier and lighter, and you get to celebrate the heroes more than go through the struggles with them as much, right? So for me, it wasn't a big deal that Batman acted off maybe in Batman v Superman, because I understand, I buy into the story, like this is coming to a better place, but that didn't necessarily work for you in the first two movies. So now that you've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League and you kind of see where the story was going, does that help elevate the first two movies for you at all?
That is a good question. I don't know if it elevates them for me. I don't think that I would enjoy those movies anymore knowing where they're going, just because I didn't like the execution in them for what they were. I tried as much as possible to watch this movie in a vacuum and just pretend that it was my first exposure to the DCEU.
Okay.
And I'm glad that I did, because I think if they just chose to wipe out every other DCEU movie, maybe with the exception of Wonder Woman, I think this would be by far the best on-screen interpretation of these characters that there has been. Even Superman, who I think just there was a lot that was wrong with him for me in the way they handled him in Man of Steel and BVS, and we talked about that in our BVS review. In this movie, he almost gets like a rebirth, literally, and kind of gets to step into
a symbolism. There's a lot of rebirth, let me tell you.
Let me tell you. Yeah, he like quite literally gets a rebirth and gets to step into this more Superman role.
Yeah.
This Superman role that I think, and there's a lot of room for him in the future because of that. But yeah, characters like Batman, who I think they allude to his dark past in BVS and him trying to kind of redeem himself. That was enough for me.
Okay.
I didn't
need to see it.
I had some problems with BVS, but in this movie, I could just fill in the blank in my imagination why he wanted to redeem himself and made bad choices, and that was enough for me. So
that really kind of tells me you could to it like a newcomer who hadn't seen any of the other movies, you could just kind of watch this and enjoy it and not really be lost on the characters.
Totally, yeah. And I think as long as you understand at the very beginning of the movie that scene is Superman dying because of Doomsday and Batman played a part in it. I mean, I think those are the only things you need to know going in. So I guess in some sense that did color my viewing because I knew that happened. But
okay,
yeah.
Interesting. All right, and then were there any parts, because the movie, because this is Zack Snyder just putting everything out on the table, there's a lot of scenes that are just kind of there to be references to other future plot lines that we may or may not see come to fruition. So did that stuff like confuse you or take you out of the movie?
There were a couple scenes, I don't know if they confused me. Maybe there was one or two scenes that were confusing to me, but taking me out of the movie for sure. I think the Martian Manhunter scene where Martha is actually Martian Manhunter. So Martha and Lois are talking and they're having their... Also, one of my favorite moments in the movie. That was... I know you asked me what took me out, but I just wanted to mention that part because it was another example of clear character motivation played out very skillfully. So it wasn't like an obvious... like, okay, I need to go steal this thing from the bank and the cops are going to try and stop me kind of conflict. It was an emotional conflict where Lois was in this deep, dark place of grieving and she had kind of separated herself. She'd quit her job or didn't work at the Daily Planet at the moment. And Martha's going in there to try and empathize with her, and her goal in that scene is to get Lois to come back to the real world. Like, that's her objective. So you go through the scene, kind of them feeling it out, her asking her questions, Lois getting to grieve a little bit, and she ends the scene by putting it out on the table and saying, Lois, this is how you can help me. I need you to come back to the world. That was so great. It was, like, masterfully executed.
Yeah.
So then when Martha turned out to be Martian Manhunter, it did take me out of it a little bit. Because I'm like,
did that surprise you, I guess?
I knew it was Martian Manhunter, but I guess it did surprise me because I thought it was Martha. So
some people had issues with that scene. They think it should have just been Martha. What did you think of that?
I would have preferred it just having watched it as I did, but yeah, I don't know. Is there some reason that makes a big difference in the story?
I think it could be Martian Manhunter or Martha either way. Both scenarios play out well for me because... And if it were Martha, she has a relationship with Lois, and her speaking to Lois and helping her out makes sense. It works for me as Martian Manhunter though because of the previous two movies and the history that General Swanwick or Martian Manhunter has with Lois Lane, and kind of building on that. And first they kind of meet and they're kind of unsure about each other in Man of Steel, and then later Lois demonstrates her tenacity for the truth and for helping Superman, and a big part of that is her interactions with General Swanwick. So he gets to see how hard she works and how her bringing the truth out helped Superman, I think, do the right thing in the end and sacrifice himself for the world. So so for me, knowing that, it makes sense to me that Martian Manhunter would, he believes in Lois Lane after seeing everything she's done the last few years and values her as a hero on her own, and would take on that role of kind of helping her come back to the world. So that totally makes sense to me.
That makes sense, yeah. And it is easy to miss that he does turn into General Swanwick right at the end of that scene.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been paying attention in Man of Steel and BVS, he is in those movies, and they do interact. So, yeah, that totally makes sense. I think the only other scenes that were off-putting to me, I was totally fine with Part 6, the first scene that they had. Deathstroke showed up on the boat to talk to Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
And they set up like a whole future conflict because he reveals Batman's name. So that was fine with me because I felt like that was I'm used to that now. That's standard fare to have a post-credit scene and kind of tease future movies. So I was fine with that. I expected something like that.
Yeah.
But it did take me out of the movie thereafter when they showed the Nightmare future world where Batman is with Deathstroke and the Joker and Flash and everything. It just it was long, and the tone was totally different than how part 5 had ended. Yeah, part 5 ended with that awesome scene of all of the heroes lined up together in Chernobyl or wherever they were.
Yeah.
That was like the perfect ending for me. That was great. Then to leave me on a note where like the Joker's the Joker's like taunting Batman about he killed Robin, and then Batman responds with like an even more brutal response, and then you're like, whoa, okay. And then Superman shows up and he's evil, and I don't know. It did take me out of it, and I know that part of what brought that about was Zack Snyder had his chance to put everything he wanted that he had originally planned in this cut, and so he put it in there. And I'm sure a lot of fans loved it, but for me, it did disrupt some of the tone for me. Yeah. So I think they could have cut part 6 out and just had those two, the Lex Luthor scene and the Martian Manhunter, maybe show up at the end. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. And, what's crazy is originally, like years ago when they were first working on Justice League, it was actually going to be a part 1 and part 2. And that kind of changed halfway through production. And then Zack Snyder later revealed, he had 3 movies in mind for a Justice League kind of series. So it's definitely one of those things where he's just like kind of planting seeds and just letting people know like this is kind of what was going to happen. But I could see that, in a theatrical cut down, trimmed down version, that being cut out, or maybe being just part of like the next movie or the part 2, let's say. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, but that's cool. And I could go on and on about this movie, but I love this from like the bottom of my heart. It was so nice seeing the characters interacting in ways that I kind of hope to see, and but also was surprised by. And I'm just gonna kind of leave it there. And then I did the response after I watched the movie and kind of thanked Zack Snyder personally. I don't know if he'll ever see that, but that's kind of cool. I just wanted to put it out there. Zack, if you're watching, love you, bro.
Love it. That's great.
Yeah. So then, if we're scoring the movie, then what would you score this movie?
Love it. What would I score it? Objectively, I would say that this movie has a quality score of a solid, very, very solid 4.
Okay.
I think it comes very close to an amazing movie. It's a great movie. I think it just falls short just because of a few things that I mentioned already. And then there are some little things in there that I think could have been better as far as, little dialogue choices and just little things here or there that could have made it a tighter movie. But I do think like very, very solid 4.
Okay.
For enjoyment, I would say
this is the big one.
This is a big one. So if a 5 is like I would watch this tomorrow again.
Okay.
And a 4 is I would watch this in the future if somebody wanted to on a dime.
Okay.
I'm going to say I would give it a 4.
4? 4 and 4.
Solid 4. Also a solid 4. Okay. I think if I could do like 0.5, I would do 0.5. I'll just stick it with 4. You're going to do 0.5?
I'm doing 0.5s. Okay. So,
okay. All right. If you're going to do it, I'll do it. I'll follow you.
All right.
4.5.
4.5 on enjoyment. Okay. I'm going to give it 4.5 on overall quality. Like you, I think there were minor things that could have been improved. There's one like kind of sequence with Wonder Woman, the bank scene there. It was like, this could be moved around a little bit, and it would have made a little bit more visual sense to me. Little tiny things throughout the movie. Not even throughout, just And then I did talk about a potential plot hole that's not really a plot hole, but it's just vague enough.
That's right.
So what I was referencing is one question that's come up on the internet where I spend a lot of my time is if Darkseid had left the mother boxes on this primitive planet and he lost it, people are like, well, wouldn't he know that as soon as Steppenwolf found a mother box that's the same planet where he saw the anti-life equation? Right? And so you kind of think about that and you're like, maybe, but I think the issue is the movie is kind of vague on how many mother boxes there are. I think we're meant to assume that there's many of them, but you just need 3 to achieve a unity. And with Steppenwolf's opening scene, it's clear that him going to investigate a mother box calling to him is a normal thing that wouldn't draw any attention. So, and then Zack Snyder also talked about this after. I think he's going to do a lot of interviews and explaining plot details like he does. He did mention that as Darkseid was leaving in the flashback, he was like almost killed, and they kind of lost their GPS. So in the flood of trillions of planets, it was hard to like figure out exactly where it was. So it's not that he forgot where the anti-life equation was. It's just that he was almost dead, and he also mentioned that everybody who was with him at the time was slain in the intervening years. So I wouldn't say it's a plot hole. It's just kind of vague and not that explained, but there's lots of things that are unexplained in even Marvel movies or whatever, that you don't need to know every detail of how this happened. The point is Steppenwolf found the anti-life equation, and now Darkseid's into it, right?
Yeah.
So because there's a little bit of vague stuff like that, I can't give it the perfect score. I'll give it a 4.5 objectively. But there's a lot of stuff that worked really well. And obviously this is going to be a 5 for me on enjoyment.
Obviously.
Come on. No question.
Did you even have any doubt?
Yeah. So
yeah.
So then, and so Zack Snyder's, what was that?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, what's funny is you said that was the plot hole. I remember you texting me that there was a plot hole that people were discussing. Mm-hmm. I think it was before I watched the movie, or maybe it was after. I don't remember.
I think it was before,
Okay, and so I was looking for the plot hole. That didn't even occur to me. Mm-hmm. What I thought the plot hole was, the only thing that I saw was that Cyborg crushes the
tape recorder?
Tape recorder, and then is like able to manipulate it with like the Force and reconstruct it in his hand. I was like, what? I thought he could just like hack into computers, but now he can like manipulate matter.
Well, since he got his powers from a mother box, and the same way a mother box can, I think what they say, restore or reanimate or whatever.
Reinstate. A box has the power to reinstate.
It can put stuff back together, basically, like they put back Superman. It was not at all a stretch for me that he can put back a tape recorder.
That makes sense. Makes sense. It was. Now we get into like a philosophical discussion, Is it technology anymore if it's completely crushed?
Well, yeah.
In the movie, I know they talk about the smoke from the house.
Oh my gosh. Okay, anyway.
The house is still there.
Wow.
Anyway, you can...
Man, I think that... I think I got all of my thoughts out. That was
I think so too.
Man, thanks for hanging out with us on this episode, everybody. What did you think of Justice League? Did you like it? Do you want to see more Snyderverse? Is Zack Snyder still Hack Snyder to you? That's not... The answer to that is no, if you're talking to me.
Be careful what you say in the comments.
Yeah, it's exactly what Batman said.
Yeah.
Choose your next words carefully. That wasn't very careful. We love you guys. I love you guys so much. Please leave all the comments and any suggestions you have for us moving forward. Any movies you want us to talk about. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We love you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.